notification. Regular meeting to order. Are we in compliance with open meeting law notifications?
Yes, we are.
Great. Can you take the roll call, please?
DeWitt.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Kearns.
Here.
Szilagyi. Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
Garland. We have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. And next, we'd like to invite Jack Bennett and Lauren Forrester up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You can start.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could stay up here just one more minute. Helping us tonight. Wonderful with everything going on that you were able to be here. And we have a lovely certificate for you to remember the occasion.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Jack, very nice to meet you. I'm so glad you could come tonight for you some pledge. Have a good rest of the year. And who are you? Nice to meet you, Judge. I'm glad that you came as well. Thank you very much.
I don't think Christy was able to make it, so
Okay.
just for the highlights. So
Okay.
we can move past that.
I should also mention that our two students tonight were from Webster Elementary, so thank you very much.
Middle.
I'm sorry, middle. And now we have the recognition of the 2022-2023 Student Board Representatives.
Yes, and we'll do Tessa now, and we'll do Owen maybe in a little bit. So just wanted to publicly recognize Tessa and Owen, and specifically Tessa in this case, just for your efforts this year. We, from a public standpoint, we tested our students a little bit more this year from a leadership standpoint, provided them with an opportunity to go back to their student councils, bring issues forward, and put it on our agenda. And Tessa and Owen were the first student leaders to be able to do that for us. And so I just want to thank you so much for your efforts and that being, bringing voice from students to the school board. You guys did a great job, I think, representing your peers and advocating for your peers and continuing to do that. So it's certainly a process that we're going to continue on and we'll refine with some of our new members coming up, which we'll announce in a bit. But Tessa, I just want to thank you for your work. And wish you luck moving forward. So not too much longer till graduation. So we'll be strong to the end, though, right? All right. So if we can give Tessa just a round of applause. Yeah, let's do it now. Yeah. So Tessa, so we have a couple gifts for you. So one is a plaque, again, just commemorating your time with us. And then what every senior waits for is the Robert's Rules of Order book. And so you can put that in your dorm room and show off to all your friends.
They'll be very impressed.
Yeah, so congratulations.
Congratulations. Very cool. You annual visitors or
Yeah.
Are you photobombing?
I'm trying not to. That's why I'm
Thank you,
leaving.
Tessa.
Is your arms out?
No, I didn't do that. I'm glad you noticed though.
And Dr. Davis, if you would like to lead us in the land acknowledgement.
Yes. For our land acknowledgement tonight, as we gather today, we would like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its border. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you very much. And we're moving on to the board president's report. I'm
Approval
sorry.
of the agenda.
Oh, gosh, Barb.
It's contagious.
It is. A motion to approve the agenda.
I'd actually like to move two items from the consent resolution to individually considered resolutions. Those would be 1C and number 6.
So noted. Anyone else?
Just thinking the reflections, I think if we can maybe move that up, because I believe Owen is going to be here, but I think he has to leave early, so I'm
Into the
wondering if we can move that
superintendent's
up.
report?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, anybody else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the change of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Resolution, or motion carries.
Wonderful. Okay, now we'll move to recognition of retirements. We have 5 retirees this month. First one is Donald Allen, EBD teacher at South Park Middle School, and he's been with the district since 2008. Next, Georgette Grunstern, cross-categorical teacher assistant at Shapiro since 2013. Tracy Hawley, grade 1 teacher from Emmeline Cook, 2001. Margaret Nichols, resource teacher assistant, Oshkosh West, 2002. And Sharon Schlitz, autism teacher assistant, Carl Traeger, 2008. Does anyone have any special acknowledgments they would like to give of any of these retirees? Bart? Sorry.
Thank you. Tracy Hawley over at Emmeline Cook had the opportunity to demonstrate a reading literacy lesson with Senator Dan Fine, Superintendent Brian Davis, and Board Member Barb Herzog recently. And she did a wonderful job, so I just want to give her a special shout out for her excellent presentation that day and the responsiveness of her students, and wish all of these retirees the very best in their retirement years ahead of them.
Absolutely. We appreciate so much all the years of effort put in by our retirees, and I hope they all enjoy retirement and everything that it has to offer. So thank you very much. And next, we would like to introduce our new student board representatives. Please join me in welcoming the following 2 student board representatives for the upcoming 23-24 school year. From Oshkosh North, we have Eva Miller, and Eva is heavily invested in choral. She's part of Madrigals and was part of the musical Big Fish. Her principal says that she is the kindest human being and puts everyone else first. She is a twin, and her twin will be the VP of Student Council, so they will make a very dynamic duo. Welcome, Eva. From Oshkosh West, we have Charlotte Stelflug, and per her principal, she said Charlotte is a member of Oshkosh West Symphony Orchestra and was recently a junior representative on prom court. So welcome to you both. As you can see from Owen and Tessa, you've got big shoes to fill, but I know that you can do it, and we welcome you and thank you for the time that you are putting into this to represent your student bodies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
And next up is a recap of the gala that was just held on May 6th. The gala was to fundraise for fine arts, musical fine arts, and art, photography, forensics, and I'm pleased to say it was a huge success. I think that some of the highlights were we had over 90 students participate either in the art show or the music that evening, which made it very, very special. We had 150 people that attended the gala, and we had staff that gave of their time to set up the most wonderful art show and all the musical entertainment. And we had instructors that led some of the forensics and some more music. It was really a magical evening filled with horses and roses and big hats. It was a wonderful Kentucky Derby party. And I'm even more pleased to say that we raised $47,000 specifically for musical instruments, and overall
Everyone was so generous. We netted over $100,000 for the evening. So it was a fantastic evening. And I want to thank the community and thank everyone that attended, because people really saw the need and they want to see a very strong music program. And these are dollars that aren't just going to be used this year. They will come in handy for years and years to come. So thank you to everyone out there. It was a wonderful evening.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
You need to get a special shout out as well for the job that you did, along with Dr. Davis's wife. It was an incredible event, and I think it's only fair to give credit to you, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
It was good. Okay, next up, we have the superintendent's report.
All right, well, we'll kick it again over to Tessa for a final report from Oshkosh West for what's up with the Wildcats.
Okay,
So.
thank you. So my name is Tessa Whitcomb, and for the last time, I'm representing Oshkosh West and letting you know what's up with the Wildcats. So this spring, our drama club put on the play 67 Cinderellas, and I got the honor to watch it. It was incredible and so funny. The cast did a fantastic job. All of our spring sports have started, and they are all doing very well. Excitingly, our girls varsity softball team defeated Appleton West 15-0 in only 5 innings on their parents' night. And we're celebrating 50 years of Oshkosh West baseball. The boys recently celebrated a 9-8 win against Oshkosh North, also on their parents' night.
Sorry, Ethan.
And moving on to the rest of our spring sports, boys tennis beat Kimberly last night during their senior night. Our boys and girls track teams have been doing very well. They recently placed 2nd and 6th at the Bayport Invite. Our boys golf celebrated some season lows, all within the 40s. And girls soccer beat Hortonville 8-0 last Wednesday and Hartford Union 3-0 on Friday. Moving on to some of our clubs, our school newspaper, The Index, and Yearbook attended the NewSPA Awards, and Index took home a blue ribbon. We had prom last Saturday, and it was so much fun. It was so exciting to see everyone, and you can see our very own Charlotte up there on the prom court representing. Student Council has been doing a lot recently. We held our very first Superhero versus Princess breakfast at West, and that was for children around Oshkosh, and that had a really good turnout and was a lot of fun. This week we've been hosting our 2nd annual dodgeball tournament, and we just had our championship game today, and that was a lot of fun for people participating and watching. And we recently elected our brand new officers. Kate Conger will be returning as our public relations officer. Our secretary will be Maddie Nesteric. Our vice president is Ben Grill, and our president is Charlotte Stelflug. We have been celebrating a lot of amazing art going on. We just had an art show to showcase students' amazing artwork this year. And as of today, one of our art students, Sam Baton, won the 2023 Congressional Art Competition, and I believe her art will be in the Wisconsin Capitol.
Wow.
FFA also has a plant sale going on this week. If you'd like to go and support them, you can do it Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 4 or Saturday from 9 to 1. And recently we have been appreciating all of our staff members with numerous staff appreciation days. They have been treated to flowers and food, and we have been showing them extra appreciation. A few weeks ago, we honored our 2023 Distinguished Alumni, Nick. Students got to hear about his experience at Oshkosh West and his success as an investigative reporter. It was a very interesting presentation, and we all enjoyed hearing from him. And potentially some future distinguished alumni. We have 2 students from Oshkosh West who received the Herb Cole Scholarship. That was Ava Bertelman and Hannah Chung, and they are both also student council members. And finally, we have some upcoming events for you. Our Senior Scholarship Awards Night is May 17th. The last day of school for seniors is May 23rd. Graduation is at May 26th, and our final last day of school is June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I went to the West Art Show. Just blow your mind away. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yes, incredible.
Yeah, great work. All right, so it looks like Owen's running behind, or I know he had a busy night tonight. So I would say, unless Eva's ready to give the North report, we'll save that till September. But we'll probably have to pass on that. And then Tessa, I wonder if you're comfortable working through the reflection, leadership. We could do that right now.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. So as I mentioned, as part of the recognition for Tessa, this is the first year that we had gone through soliciting topics from our student councils to be able to bring to school board topics. So worked with Tessa and Owen and the student councils back in the fall to get some topics that were that they felt were worthy of bringing forward. They did some surveys and brought a lot of information back to the boards for what I thought were some really good discussions. So I thought tonight would be a good chance just to be able to offer Tessa now just an opportunity to just reflect on that experience. In our commitment to continuous improvement, we want to make sure that we are taking feedback from Tessa and what are maybe some better ways to move forward. So for Charlotte and Eva, as we're moving forward, you guys will be able to refine this and it'll be the next people up. So I really appreciate you guys being here too. You can kind of get a feel for how we're moving forward. So so Tessa, I'll just turn it over to you just for some thoughts and reflections and discussion on that.
So like Dr. Davis said, today's presentation, we're just going to look back at our time on the board and review and reflect on what we presented on, as well as the suggestions that we made to the board regarding those topics. So first, overall, our experience was great. We were very honored to be able to represent our schools and the student voices. It was super interesting to hear from students about their wants and needs, and then be able to share those with the school board in hopes of making those a reality. And just sitting on the board, we learned a lot of meeting skills that we will likely use in the future. I will definitely be referencing Robert's rules as I move into the future, so it's all been great. We had a few suggestions just regarding the extra presentations that we put together. We suggested spreading them out, perhaps every other month, and choosing topics throughout the year. I believe Owen spoke about how different topics become more relevant as we move through the school year. Yeah. So rather than choosing them all at once, we'd like to choose them throughout the year to reflect what students are thinking about at that moment. And then there are just a few formalities. We struggled a little bit putting together reports and deciding what information you guys are exactly looking for in our presentation, so perhaps just some guidance in the beginning on what exactly to do. And Owen added more overall discussion during board meetings surrounding the topics presented, and even maybe hearing back in a few months after the board has taken those suggestions, and you guys could report back to us what you have done with them so we can share it with our schools and see how, or let the students know how their voice has really made a difference. Next, we wanted to go through the 4 different topics that we covered this year and just review the different suggestions we made. And if you guys have any input on how the board has taken those suggestions, we'd love to hear that as well. So back in January, I believe, we talked about mental health, and we saw that a large number of students struggled with mental health, so there was definitely a need for more resources. The suggestions that we made were to consider student feedback and data, to continue to invest in resources and work with programs like Rise Up and businesses like Catalpa, to train staff on mental health awareness and support, and to hire more staff members that are also trained to support students struggling with mental health. So I guess I'll open it up to you guys. How have you guys discussed this, taken it?
Yeah, and I'll just say from our staffing process, so the Rise Up program is something that we, have studied throughout the year as a pilot at Webster and middle schools, and then something that we're going to extend then to North High School for next year. So that included investment in a social worker as part of the staffing pattern, and that actually is up for tonight, and just making sure that we can continue to build that program, moving forward. So I know that's one of the things that we had taken a look at. So
Can I add? After that presentation, I'd spoken to somebody who works in one of the schools in this field, and I think they felt very satisfied and happy that you were able to bring that to us, because what you notice from as students is also what the staff notices too. So it's good sometimes for us to just hear that feedback and use that. So it was definitely well done.
I think by far this was one of our most meaningful presentations, because I think this is an issue that hits hard for a lot of students.
yeah.
Did you want to add anything, or we can move on to the next one?
Hi, Owen.
Hi.
Good to see you.
We can move on to the next one.
Okay, I'll give you a second.
I think too, that presentation helped shape some of our future discussions as a board, because I know we referenced that presentation a bunch of times in different meetings moving forward, or, so it had an impact for sure, and great job. It's great to know what students are thinking,
Definitely. So next we talked about future preparations. This was with standardized testing, college preparation, workforce preparation, all of the above. And our students suggested that we include more practice with taxes and finances, as well as include more family and consumer education classes, so they know not only how to prepare themselves for college, but for life after high school. A lot of students wanted more CAP and AP courses to better prepare themselves for college and let them explore more difficult courses and topics they were interested in. They also wanted guidance on choosing and applying for college and financial aid, and that included choosing whether or not college was for them, or perhaps if they wanted to go straight to the workforce or go to a tech school. They also expressed that they wanted job shadowing opportunities and more practice with job application and interview skills within curriculums in order to better prepare themselves for getting a job and all of that. Anything?
I would say with the job shadowing, there was just overall a lot on transitioning between the end of high school into the workforce specifically, and having more time for both school and transitioning into a full-time job. Our next one was environmental sustainability, which we already kind of had a lot from the project at West, and there's not a lot that can be done with the facilities that we have, but considering energy efficient options for the future, especially with a lot of new schools that are being built, and a lot of eco-friendly options, such as we talked about, the sunlights and solar panels, and also increasing the environmental and conservation education in our classes, whether it be adding on more diverse options for classes in different areas concerning the environment, and just keep providing what we already have and spreading awareness. I think students really know what's best for our environment. We learn a lot throughout our time, so keeping that going, and especially with the biodigester, spreading awareness about the benefits of that and how we can expand that to our schools, and just encourage schools to make changes at their own level. And we saw that a lot at West with the garbage specifically, and how effective it was.
And just to follow up from the biodigester project, so I've got a meeting and schedules have been tough to get together, but have a meeting with our staff, custodial staff, and some staff at West, along with our business office, and then Hannah, as we can coordinate schedules to follow up. We're going to have a conversation at our Facilities and Finance Committee meeting. We were trying to get it for May, but it's going to need to be pushed off a little bit just due to scheduling. But yeah, I want to make sure that we can circle back around that, take all that data as we're moving forward, and see if we can do more along those lines.
Okay, so I think this is our most recent one, the lunch experience. So this was one of the topics where we focused on surveying the whole school and kind of getting the opinion of the student body. This seemed like one that would be very important for student input. And one of the bigger things that was mentioned a lot was the options for food and drinks. So while there are choices for students, there are many for students who are on certain diets like vegan and vegetarian. So that would include expanding like salad options and overall giving more options that cater to more cultural foods as well within the schools. I mentioned a lot how important it was to expand the time during our lunch periods and how not only does that give students more time, but it could also increase student involvement with the lunch program and have more students eating hot lunch because they have more time to get their food. And then we also talked about, when we were preparing this, outdoor seating, and it is really difficult in Wisconsin, so one way could be, could students have an easier way to take their food to green spaces outside without having to invest in more infrastructure? And then that would include indoor as well. At West, I'm not sure which one was
The
recently
F
redone.
room was recently redone.
F room was recently redone, and there was a lot of favorability towards that. Can we expand that to Oshkosh North and the other cafeteria at West? And overall, free lunch has proved very successful at the schools where it's available for students, especially at the high school level, which hasn't been reached yet for West. So we still encourage to keep reaching towards the goal of having it for all students in the schools. And I think for catering options to students, that could also include surveying students monthly or quarterly on the menu. So it's just another way to have more involvement in the program.
I think a takeaway from this presentation and all of the presentations is that students have things to say and they want to be heard. And there are students who asked to be surveyed on the lunch, and I'm sure that if we surveyed them on other things, they would also have really meaningful feedback, not only that we can present for you, but that they can give to you directly.
Yeah, and I think, so I appreciate that. I would agree. I think this is one of the more meaningful ones. And I think also being able to make sure that we're looping in principals, back to the buildings, because as we're looking at the amount of time for lunches, those are things that they work through the schedules on. So I think that's again, as we're learning this and moving forward, to be able to just make sure we're directly including the principals as part of these conversations would be important. But so thank you guys for that.
I think you are touching on a number of areas that are not just school district, but community-wide, and come from higher levels, where you'd like to see more support from state or national when it comes to some of these items. So it's important to have the conversation. We have a legislative committee. We have abilities to try to help and advocate for some of these things, but personally looking at the free lunch, that's a really important one, and comes with dollars, but it's there's incredible value to that from an equity standpoint. So I think that's, so yeah, your presentations from my standpoint have been wonderful. I know that there are some of these that we're still talking about and working through our committees, so thank you both.
I think it's been very informative to have the student voice at the table on these and other topics, and to find out what's in the minds of not only our two student representatives, but the rest of the students behind you. looking back, high school years are incredibly important in everyone's lives, and I think anyone who's graduated from high school would agree with that. And so whatever we can do to make this a more fulfilling experience for students, I think is something we really need to address. And I agree with Dr. Davis. Some of these would go back to the principal and/or department heads. For example, the one dealing with college and future prep, I could see the counseling department being involved in that, maybe department chairs. Maybe there could be an assignment out of an English class related to filling out job applications or interviewing skills, because that involves speaking, which is part of the English curriculum. But I think there are a number of opportunities here to incorporate what you've learned and what you've shared back at the school site.
The information that you guys presented is incredibly valuable, because the more information we have as board members and as a district, I think the more informed decisions we can make to try to push the district forward in a positive direction. So it was a good year. You know, it's good to learn continually, and then it's good to take all the information and to try to use it. So this was a good platform for students to voice their opinions and for us to learn and, you know, and to try to use that information to make the district better. So thank you.
And I will just say, I know I haven't been in this seat very long, but I have been watching, you know, at home and in the community, and I just have to say thank you, because I know it takes a lot of guts to come up here and present information to not only the board but the public as well. So kudos to you, thank you, and good luck with whatever you decide to do in the future.
Thank you for all the extra time you put into this to make us more educated.
Yeah, thank you all for the opportunity. It really has been an honor to sit here and to hopefully use our voices to make a difference.
I just wanted to give credit to our former board president, Bob Peschel, who had attended a session at the State Education Convention in, must have been January of '22, and came back very enthused about this concept of having our student reps present. And so even though he left his position last September, we wanted to continue this concept, and it's proven to be very successful, and I think a model for other school boards in the state. So thank you for all you've done to bring us up to speed.
All right, so since Owen snuck in, and we'll have him do his Oshkosh North report, but before that, Owen, we want to recognize you. So we gave this to Tessa before, but so you can come on up. So Owen, just want to thank you for your work and leadership. Again, you know, you and Tessa were the first ones to be able to accomplish this, you know, reflection from the student body and be able to bring that to the board. So I just want to thank you for your leadership. It's been great to work with you. So we've got a few parting gifts for you. So one is a plaque certificate frame. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
To put up. We expect that in your dorm room. And then the other thing that would be better for a dorm room is your Robert's Rules of Order. So it'll be the hottest thing at the first party you go to. So,
Pull it up.
Congratulations. So let's give Owen a round of applause. Congratulations.
Gotta get probably. Maybe not.
And Owen, we'll slide right into the Oshkosh North report then.
Okay. So, over the last month at Oshkosh North, I think one of the first big things that happened was our State Solo and Ensemble Festival. I mentioned that it was going to happen in the last presentation, and this took place at UW Oshkosh, and Oshkosh North had quite a few students involved, including their madrigal singers, and came home with a lot of awards this year, which was quite unusual and very good. And then as we move towards the end of the year, our student council had their elections and introduced a new executive team for next year. And then that team will be taking on the appreciation weeks for the rest of the school year. So those will be custodial, student, support staff, and teachers. And as you can see, they've already done a lot of work right out of elections. I think it was 2 weeks ago, our Oshkosh North Hall of Fame ceremony went on, and we inducted Jessica Turner to the Oshkosh North Hall of Fame. She is a influencer, and she gained her footing when she became a blogger. She founded a blog for working moms, offering advice, and she's written 3 books, one of which was a New York Times bestseller. So she had a lot of great things to say to the students and visited a lot of classrooms, doing a lot of Q&As about all the places she's been, and it was a great day. Last weekend, Oshkosh North had prom. The theme was Enchanted Jungle, and it was held at the Culver Center at UW Oshkosh. So the students got all dressed up, and we had our prom royalty ceremony, and there was a lot of people who went, so it was a great night. Our communities program at Oshkosh North is also very busy right now. I've been mentioning their junior projects a lot. One of them specifically is the Bike Osh event that's going to be happening in the near future. And not only is their C2 program leading that event, but they're also involving their younger students, the freshmen and sophomores. They recently took a trip to Madison and biked around the city. They are learning about not only the environmental benefits of biking, but the health and community benefits that come with it. Communities also hosted their spaghetti dinner last week at Oshkosh North. They try to have one every year, and this one, the proceeds went towards the program so that they can keep funding projects like Bike Osh and their junior projects. So a lot of community members and the students prepared spaghetti for students in the play, and anyone else was invited. Another junior project from communities is their NAMI 5K. This happened this Saturday at Oshkosh North. All the mascots were there, the choir sang, there was a small speech before, and then the walk or run. There wasn't the best weather, so it wasn't as highly attended as in the past years, but they still were able to show their support for mental health awareness. That was the main goal of this event. I'm not sure if this was touched on yet. I saw it in the agenda, but the Oshkosh North Jazz Band performed at the OASD Arts Gala, and I don't know why there's a question mark there, but they for sure did raise over $100,000, and it was a great night for music in Oshkosh. Our program is very excited to have those funds for the future. Also on Saturday, our musical at Oshkosh North got recognized at the Center Stage Awards at the PAC in Appleton. So there were 2 awards for the Outstanding Lead Performance and Outstanding Achievement for our stage manager. So students got to dress up and walk the red carpet, and there were performances throughout the night. The same week, it was a very busy week at North last week, was our spring play called Mr. Burns, a Post-Electric Play. They had 2 night performances and then a matinee performance. And the second performance was right after the spaghetti dinner, as I mentioned. So it was a perfect way for community members to get dinner and then see a show. And then earlier this week was our Polaris Honor Society induction ceremony, which happens every year. So just like Student Council, they brought in a whole new team of leaders. They have a fresh advisor, so they're kind of rebuilding the group at Oshkosh North, and they brought in a lot of new sophomores to the Honor Society program at Oshkosh North. So they will be able to host a lot more events in the future with a lot more students involved. And then a few upcoming events. Tonight is the Music Department Awards, which I will be leaving for. And then on the 13th is the Bike Osh event that Communities has been putting on. And then there's a band concert on May 18th, followed by the choir concert on the 23rd, and graduation on the 24th. So everything's wrapping up. So that's what's happening at Oshkosh North.
Great, thank you, Owen.
Thanks.
Great.
Okay, for the superintendent's good news report for tonight, we'll start at Jefferson Elementary. Officer Kate Mann from the Oshkosh Police Department recently visited Jefferson's Deputy Club and thanked them all for their hard work. Members of the Deputy Club are on patrol during their lunch recess, helping keep their school community clean, finding lost items, solving problems, and making sure everyone has a buddy. We are so proud of the kind-hearted and responsible students at Jefferson for that program. Oshkosh West students traveled to UW-Madison to show off their creativity and analysis of the Great World text, which focused on Tommy Orange's There, There. Students had a great time presenting and engaging in learning with other high school students from across the state of Wisconsin. It's back. Our Brewing Futures Mobile Cafe kicked off its second season this past weekend. The truck was showcased at the NAMI 5K awareness event at Oshkosh North that Owen just spoke about. We had over 500 people participate in the mental health awareness event and were able to learn quickly about the unique food truck. The complete schedule of where to find Brewing Futures this season is available on our website. They already have nearly 30 appearances scheduled over the summer months at this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing them around in the community. Neurodiverse students at Carl Traeger Elementary School recently held an author's share party. The students shared their stories to an audience including parents, district staff, and reading specialists. They were supported by our assistive technology department. Those in attendance celebrated their progress and success with a reception of cake and punch, and a great time was had by all. Oshkosh North Communities students are focused on improving student engagement and school pride. Last year they helped give our beloved Sparty mascot a makeover. Now with a fresh look, their focus is on perfecting Sparty's mannerisms and appearances. So students worked with an expert to formulate multiple moves and mannerisms to best portray Sparty. Then hosted a school panel with school and district leaders to provide feedback and suggestions. So it's great to see our students taking ownership of the school experience and working towards fostering a community and school pride. Last week, we welcomed hundreds of current and former community members into Webster Stanley Elementary and Middle School to take a walk down memory lane. Visitors were able to take a self-guided tour of the schools that will close at the end of the 22-23 school year. Conversations overheard in the hallway were incredible, from former students talking about their favorite teachers to classmates reconnecting after years apart. We are grateful for the opportunity to join together to celebrate our past while embracing our future as Menominee Elementary. Oshkosh West FFA students recently competed in the state FFA Nursery Landscaping Career Development event in Madison, placing 6th overall in the state. This experience aims to develop individual responsibilities, foster teamwork, and promote communication while recognizing the value of ethical competition and individual achievement. So congratulations to everyone involved in that. It's a great accomplishment. And for the third time tonight, but you can never announce it enough, the gala was a huge success, as we heard from our reports. We're so grateful to have that event make it possible. From our student and faculty performances to the generosity of those in attendance, the event was an incredible representation of the power that the arts have and exist in our district and our community. So thanks everyone who participated in that. Also, all week, we're having a celebration on Teacher and Staff Appreciation. So this annual celebration offers a time to recognize our outstanding Oshkosh Area School District educators and staff members who spend each day shaping our children's lives, and to remember all of those who played a role in shaping our life. So please join us in celebrating and thanking our amazing staff this week. And just a reminder of our COVID protocols, which we can find online for this school year. And then a list of events that I've been to over the last couple of weeks. So again, I just appreciate everybody's accommodation, and great to be out and about in our schools and in our communities. So that concludes the good news report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Next up, Mr. Fox with the referendum update.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm pleased to be here tonight again to update you on the progress of both of our construction projects that are ongoing right now with Bell Phillips and with Oakwood. Oakwood, as you recall, is a secure vestibule project, one of 4 that we'll undertake this summer. This one began early because it's a full build-out construction, if you will, of the main office area. The new exterior masonry walls have been completed, and the new office is currently being structurally tied into the existing building. We anticipate structural steel and roofing to closely follow behind. As you'll see on your left, this is actually on the east side of Oakwood Elementary School, closest to Oakwood Street, so you can see all 4 walls standing. On your right is going to be the future secure vestibule. You can see the doors roughly placed, and they're starting to tie that facility, the new construction, into the existing facility. Over the next 30 days, we expect that the load-bearing masonry walls for the vestibule will be completed. You saw that the vestibule in itself was just beginning construction. Electrical, plumbing, rough-ins, again, that will be started, and that will be ongoing for the next couple of months. Moving then quickly to Bill Phillips. Work completed in the last 30 days. Cabinetry in building section D offices is complete, so now really we have section C and section D, which are the core part of the building, are for the most part complete. Load-bearing walls for building section F, band, choir, orchestra, is complete. We were just touring the facility earlier this week. They're just completing some of the non-load-bearing masonry walls, so I would anticipate by next week all masonry work will be, for the most part, complete for internal walls. Roof installation over building section E and F, which is the gymnasium and band, choir, orchestra, is complete. Field house and clear story, acoustic panels and ceiling clouds are complete. Mechanical systems for the field house are complete and running, at least circulating internal air. Hallway flooring in building section C and D is complete. That's rubber flooring, carpeting is all down, which we will show you in pictures following this slide. Exterior foam installation in the field house and academic building is 100% complete, as the masons work their way around the building for the finished exterior stone. So some pictures, internal and then external. Top left is a lower picture off of the cafeteria group bathrooms. You can see that blue color, and then we'll come back to that. On the lower right is also the yellow color. These are the colors that you're going to see predominantly within the facility. So you can see the blue, and then that tile in the large group bathroom for the boys, girls, and the center is a single-use bathroom. In the middle top is the field house. You can see the acoustic panels are up, paint, you can see the painted ceiling. We've shown this slide many times, but there just keeps becoming more and more elements. Yesterday, they actually started installing wood into that space, so it's pretty exciting. Top right is special ed hallway. You can see the doors are in place, so you can kind of get a sense of what types of doors are going to be within the school, the glass next to the doors. The rubber flooring is down. We've seen pictures of the classroom in this space for the last couple of months, so you get a sense of what that completed corridor and what that space is going to look like. Lower left, another picture of the cafeteria, but this one you can now see we're pretty well complete with the exception of flooring and the learning staircase. You can see the blue across the bottom, the grays. Clear story, specifically in this you can see the clouds and multiple layers of clouds and the architectural accents that Bray really added to really set off this cafeteria to such a wonderful place within this facility. Bottom middle is life skills classroom, second floor in D. Again, rubber flooring, the classroom's all ready for technology and is pretty well completed. Lower right is a picture of the second floor of the academic tower. So really our first floor of the academic tower is just about at completions, and then they're moving to the second floor. Paint is pretty well done on the second floor. This is the ceiling going in. Lower floor is blue, second floor is yellow, so you can, again, that theme of the colors. Painting has started on the third floor, so it's moving right along. Building exterior, top left, for all those people that love internal mechanical pieces of the building. This is a picture of the upper penthouse that sits on top of the academic tower. It'll have the air handlers that will feed all of the 3 floors of the academic tower. Center top is the connector piece that will connect band, choir, and orchestra, or does connect band, choir, and orchestra to the cafeteria. You can see the masonry piece is done, and it's just waiting finish work in glass. Top right is an internal picture of the IMC, our library. So you can start to see the subtle accents of the copper roof and how it ties in with the copper panels on the outside, copper on the inside. We'll soon see clouds and more of the ceiling detail internal to that space. Lower left is a look of the north side of Val Phillips. You can see they're finishing on the western elevation of that particular area, section A, but it gives you a good sense of what the finished work looks like versus unfinished as you look at B in the distance, which is just insulation at this point. Center bottom is the western elevation of Val Phillips. They are grading that particular area and getting that area ready for pavement. They're finishing their concrete work, and soil is being added, at least as of earlier this week, prepping the areas that will be grass and green space. And then lastly, lower right is a look from the future parking lot. You're looking on the right-hand side of the picture is the band, choir, orchestra wing, and on your left, where you can kind of see parts of the crane, that is the look of the gymnasium. This will be the last part of the facility that will receive an exterior finish. But that is what they'll see from the when entering the building from the parking lot. So we're projected over the next 30 days. We expect, and I did not include a picture in this, I apologize, but Streck is busy with installing kitchen equipment. Pretty amazing kitchen, so they'll be busy this entire month finishing the installation of the kitchen equipment. Site grading and concrete on the west side of the building will continue in preparation for asphalt. Rubber flooring in the academic tower, first floor, will be completed. It has already been started. Continued painting to occur in the academic tower. They will complete second floor and will be ongoing on third floor. Terrazzo flooring installation in the cafeteria, we anticipate completion. They've already started as of today. Fieldhouse wood flooring will be complete, at least the installation piece. We've got stain and paint that will continue, but the installation has started as of today. As my next bullet point was, wood flooring for the gymnasium. And bathroom ceramic tile will continue in the academic tower second floor and will be complete within a month. Any questions on the progress of Bell Phillips or Oakwood?
I just have I've had a couple questions since we started having these updates on Val Phillips. 2 of them were always, was it on time? Was it on budget? There's still a few people that think it's not on budget. So I'll just keep asking that until they know that it is. And I think it's finally time for a third question.
Yep.
How many days till estimated completion?
Substantial completion is August 8th. And that has been our date since before the project began. It is still our date today, so we are very comfortable telling you that the project is on schedule. We are on budget, in fact.
Okay.
I don't have a number of days for you, the August 8th.
I
don't want to do the math.
Someone that's watching, the 80 people that are watching, I'm sure someone will figure it out. And it's a beautiful building. I mean, it's going to be beautiful and great. So, and the community should embrace that, because it's probably going to be the nicest school we've had in 50 years. You know what I mean? So, thank you guys.
Thank you. Barb, I'm sorry.
That's
Dr.
okay.
Herzog.
No, I'm Barb. My question is, and this has come up before, there were some trees on that site before the construction began that were removed, and there was some talk about incorporating some of that wood from those trees into this project. Could you give us an update on where we might be with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
The wood was rough cut, so it sits, right now it's sitting in our maintenance shop on a drying bunk. We've got 2 bunks. I think there's approximately 18 to 20 individual pieces of wood, probably about 9.5 feet long, about 8 inches wide by about 2.5 inches thick. It has to sit for approximately 2 years, is what I was told by the individual who I contacted, a local individual who is going to kiln dry the wood. But we have been instructed to let the wood naturally dry, apparently. Given oak, if you try to dry it too quickly, it'll cup, and it becomes a little bit unusable. It'll deform just a little bit. So our goal is to let it sit for 1 more year, and in 2024, have it kiln dried. Our goal all along was to have this wood transformed within one of our wood shops into something usable. We have a couple of ideas internally, but ultimately we'll circle back to that and see what the best idea is. But the solution will be something internal that will fit within a set of Bell Phillips. Could be some benches, could be something different. But we couldn't get it dried in time to incorporate it as part of the actual construction project, like a finish on a wall or something like that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you so much for the report. It's very exciting to see it almost completed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fox, if you'd like to stay up and talk about the summer maintenance projects and capital improvement plan?
I submit to the board the maintenance plan for this summer. There's a significant amount of projects of respective time, and I'm not going to, of course, read them off individually. I would like to point out a couple key projects that are going on, both internal with our staff and external. The external projects that are ongoing that I would like just to remind the board and the community of. Oshkosh West, it's easy to forget this, but Oshkosh West has a full building electrical renovation that is ongoing right now. That is a pretty significant project. Everything is going well on budget. Anticipate completion by fall of this year. West High School field turf renovation project will occur this summer. The Musco lights are already standing, and the field turf renovation will start on the 5th of June inside of the track at West, so I'm pretty excited for that school to have that field available to them in fall. Secure vestibule projects, as you're aware, are underway at Oakwood we've been talking about, but we do have Reed, West High School and North High School that will receive secure enhancements this summer as well. And of course, Bell Phillips Middle School we've been talking about, that will be done. Substantial completion is August 8th. Menominee Elementary School will be discussing quite a bit. And contractually that begins on June the 12th. A couple items of note. We're adding air conditioning to West High School. Now, unfortunately, that will not be working this summer, but the project is starting this summer. Just due to lengthy lead times, the elements of the air conditioning will show up throughout the winter, but it will be air conditioned in the weight room and the auxiliary gym for the spring of 2024. Administration building, this building will receive a chiller replacement and chiller replacement at South Park Middle School to replace some aging infrastructure. And then roofing projects of note, just because of the cost, Oshkosh North High School, 2 roof sections, Reed, 1 section, Perry Tippler receives 2 new roof sections and 1 awning roof at the maintenance shop, as well as 2 playground replacements, 1 at Jefferson, 1 at Emmeline Cook. So just wanted to share some of the larger items with the board, and if there are any questions related to, sorry, one more item, just of note, just a significant amount of additional work with our internal staff, both custodial and maintenance, will be spent this summer supporting staff and program changes associated with the opening of Val Phillips. So a lot of internal labor will be moving materials and equipment, even though we're outsourcing a lot of the moves. So I just want to give them a big shout out in advance because of the significant amount of work that they're going to invest in time into that overall project and getting all the teachers and kids, back into the appropriate place for education in the fall. So, any questions on some of that?
I have a question, kind of a little off topic with it, but when the city plans road improvements around the schools, do they coordinate that with the school district in any way? Or do they just kind of do their own thing? I ask about Roosevelt because taking away one of those 2 roads around Roosevelt is just less than ideal, and I know people feel that. It makes the before and after school kind of a mess, even more so. And I just didn't know if there's any conversation to be had about how they choose to do that.
No, the city has a capital improvement plan. They, like everybody else, and they look at their roads, grade their roads, and ultimately, we get notified that they're going to redo a road, and this year was Tyler. We do have conversations once they've determined that they will, in fact, be redoing a road next to a school, the impact on the school, but unfortunately, it impacts the school. Their projects are lengthy, as you're well aware.
Yeah.
So they start in the spring and they continue into the fall, oftentimes finishing in October, sometimes as late as early November, depending on the scope of the particular project. So while we don't have any input as to what roads are going to be done, we do have good communication with the city once the projects have been determined.
Okay.
And they've been very reasonably fair with us in trying to make sure that we can get access to parts of the school that we want access to. Last summer, Algoma was torn up, and we were able to drive through the entire construction site to get to the parking lot of Reed, which was a very difficult site for the students, but it was a significant offering by the contractor.
Okay. I mean, obviously, we want the roads to be fixed and be better, and it's ultimately better in the long run. I just, asked that question. So, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one question. You said playground at E. Cook. Is that a replacement or is that an enhancement?
I'm sorry, it is not the play area of the playground, it's an asphalt replacement. So let me clarify. When I said playground at Emmeline Cook and Jefferson, it will be just an asphalt replacement.
Okay, thank you.
And whatever's painted on the asphalt for play areas.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted the same thing, thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
Mr. Nehan's budget variance report.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So the budget report you have in your packet reads and has been running very similar to what we've done in the past. What I'd like to kind of do is walk through, there's a few new graphs charts within your packet that we really haven't gone over and explained. So I'd like to take a little time to show you and kind of explain what some of this is. The third page of the graphs is a fund balance. And what this does is compare where we were last year to where we are this year and really kind of demonstrate how the revenues come into the district. So as you see the dotted line last year, as we get towards November, we were more than out of cash. This is why we short-term borrow in September, to make sure that we actually have money in the bank. So we do have it, but this is where our books are showing. What we will be showing on books moving forward is really booking our taxes as a receivable. So they're actually on the books, but we don't see the cash in the actual bank account until taxes get paid. The next page, page 4, is probably at this time of year one of the more important pages for a budget variance. And this really looks at each of our funds individually, but then also compares them actually where we're sitting right now. So Fund 10, our general fund right now is $500,000 in deficit. Our Fund 27, the special ed fund, is at $1.7 million surplus. So by law, we have to combine these two. So that's why typically the report we go over is a combined Fund 10 and Fund 27 report. So when you look at those two combined, we have to zero out Fund 27 using Fund 10. So really right now, our operating funds are about $1.2 million at running a surplus. You'll also notice that our other funds are on here. So we've got the recreation departments running really well right now. Food services is running as a deficit, but food service is running a deficit because, again, there's around a 2 to 3 month lag in getting revenues from the state in the claiming system for food service. So our books show that we're running a deficit, but I would expect us to run much closer to break even to potentially a surplus by the end of the year when all the revenue comes in. This is the typical report that combines the general and the special ed fund. That's typically what we would use. And then these reports are usually what I actually give the main report from, which is also including a forecasted off a 5-year trend number. So we forecast out to the end of the year. Again, as we talked last month, we will not end the year with a $1.2 million surplus. We are going to control our revenues from the ESSER funds to try to keep this much closer to break even and utilize as much ESSER money as we can for next year to help with next year as well. Does anyone have any questions on the budget variance?
I guess I do. And again, this is still all kind of new to me,
Yep.
so forgive me if I sound silly. When we're talking about ESSER funds and holding it, until next year, are we looking at, like, when we're looking at potentially bringing in new staff or new positions, is that where this ESSER fund is going to be used?
No. We've really concentrated hard and worked hard not to use ESSER funds for staffing.
Okay.
Especially that are going to be permanent. We did allocate ESSER funds for some of the temporary positions while they were temporary at the time because we didn't have them in the normal budget. We are not, the plan would not be to utilize ESSER funds for next year for staffing because staffing is continuous. We'd be looking more for the ESSER funds to do, if we needed to do a larger curriculum purchase, those kinds of items that were going to be a one-time expense that we can help offset with the use of the ESSER money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
And the next topic is extended contracts.
We have an army of friends for this one.
Well, I didn't know exactly how many were coming up, so.
Just to give you some background on extended contracts, all teachers are under a certain contract that is set for a certain number of days. If there is ever a need for, and it's not just teachers, it's also other professional staff as well as some of our hourly staff. So once once we get past the school year, we have very limited ability to bring them in to do any other extra work. So that's what the extended contracts are for, and every one of us has certain groups that we bring in for the summer for some of the work. For example, the two groups that I work with most closely are the media specialists and the technology integrators. The media specialists are the ones who maintain our 9,000 Chromebook fleet in terms of managing that inventory, bringing it in, make sure it's ready, make sure it's set up ready for the students the subsequent year. And the good news is we no longer bring those in weeks and weeks early like we used to do years ago. Now we actually, because the students need to use those devices till the very end. So what we do is we have an extended contract to deal with that asset as we go forward. The technology coaches do a lot of professional development, design, and they work on a lot of the curricular items that go over the summer, and usually that's to get professional development ready for the August professional development days. So those are two of the main areas that I deal with. I think we can probably go around and just briefly talk about the other areas. Why don't you take it?
Sure, so I'm proposing extended contracts for 3 groups. One is school counselors, the other is our alternative education and coordinator of online learning, and the third is our social emotional learning coaches. So for our school counselors, this is primarily our high school counselors. So at the end of each school year, we have students who are wrapping up credits. Sometimes they go into the summer, students who earn credits at summer school. Those things all impact not only student graduation, but also scheduling for the upcoming semester. So our counselors are constantly having to go back, schedule in students based on credits earned at the end of this semester in summer school, but then we also get an influx of new students each summer. So our counselors are meeting with those new students, making sure that they're reviewing their transcripts and setting them up for the right courses as they enter next school year. So those are just some other things, but there are quite a few other things that our counselors do to get ready for the following school year. And then our alternative education coordinator and coordinator of online learning does a lot of preparation for E-Academy. She also oversees our Riverside program, so there's a lot of preparation going into next school year, working with Fox Valley Tech and making sure everything's up to par with Riverside. And then our final group is our social emotional learning coaches, and they're doing a lot of prep work for next year. So when our teachers return, they're set in terms of SEL curriculum implementation. They have everything ready to go for like our Savers administration, and then making sure that whatever path we're going down with SEL, especially at the secondary level next year, that we have everything set and ready to go for the new year.
In my area, administration and deans, I'm asking for an extended contract, probably a one-time only for our deans in regards to the opening of Val Phillips. There's a lot of work that has to be done, especially in the regards of how they're going to flow students through the building, and also the safety aspects, as they're going to be doing a full safety, their whole team, along coordinating with other outside officials, OPD, etc. So I'm asking for a one-time extra hours for our deans to work with their administrative team this summer.
I am asking for extended time for our program support coordinators or teachers, and also our transition coordinators. And when you look, most of the program support is compliance-based, but then we of course have transition, working with our Project Life and Project Search, learning some of the bus lines, working on Indicator 14. We do surveys, so Mary Beth Connors, who's our coordinator, surveys to see how our students are doing vocationally after high school, and that's that actually, the revenue from that offsets some of these extended hours, because we do get $1,000, usually around $1,000 per completed survey if it's successful and if our students are employed in our community. So.
Underneath my roles and responsibilities are the CTE coordinator, as well as the ESOL coordinator, as well as the agriculture teachers. So our agriculture teachers are supervising students through agribusiness management, the greenhouse, etc. For our ag teachers at Oshkosh North and West. Career and technical education is also doing professional development, working with youth apprenticeship contracts and approvals from there. And then our ESOL coordinator is prepping for professional development and working with our staff getting ready for the next school year.
Okay, and then the final area is our curriculum coordinators, and that includes the STEM, we're now renaming the science to be STEM, and so our STEM coordinator has some work to do around that. Our social studies, our K-12 math coordinators, and our 6-12 literacy coordinator. And it involves, some of it is summer curriculum work, some of it is professional development, training, and facilitation, and really just vamping up to get ready for the next school year.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Carnes?
This is for Drew. All of this, I imagine, is part of the budget proposal that we had taken a look at previously and is all included in that?
Yes, they will be.
Okay. Thank you.
That was my question as well. Dr. Herzog?
Thank you. I had a question under major points. It's letter C, which is the curriculum coordinators. And it notes that the tasks to be accomplished during the summer of 2023 are outlined in section C below. This is section C. I'm assuming that there's another section C, which I believe is the one under budget. Is that correct? Is that where that comes? It's called explain.
I am thinking something got moved and we became K.
Oh, all right.
Yep.
That happens.
Yeah.
There are several
When
cooks
there
in
are
this
many
kitchen.
cooks in one document, things get shifted, so, but thank you for pointing that out.
I was
so
just
that
trying
we
to
can-
follow along, so.
Yes, no, that's important.
Thank you. I often reflect on when I was working in public schools, and people would say, well, what do you do in the summer? There's nothing to do. There's no truth to that. There's a tremendous amount of work that can be and should be done in the summer to prepare and make sure that the school year is off to a great start and continues that way all the way through. So thank you to you and all the people who are going to be involved in summer, because I'm sure that they're going to be working more hours than what it looks like they are paid for on paper.
That is a true statement.
Thank you for all of your planning and coordinating hours.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Pausing to see if we have any non-agenda and agenda-related participants this evening.
We do not.
Okay. Seeing none, we will continue on with the agenda to workshops. Our first workshop this evening is alternative education. Mr. Kemmerer. And for the public, can you introduce your two co-conspirators here this evening, so everyone knows who they are?
Absolutely. So I'm Matt Kemmerer, I'm the Director of Pupil Services, and with me I have Andrea Fisher, who's our Program Coordinator at True Academy, and Lisa Leader, who's our Alternative Education Coordinator and also coordinates our Riverside program. So before we jump into our presentation, I just wanted to mention that today marks National School Nurse Day. And I know it's also Teacher Appreciation Week, but I just wanted to give a shout out to our school nurses and our health assistants who do a wonderful job each and every day keeping our kids safe and healthy. So again, just thought I should mention that since today is the day. But in terms of alternative education, we're going to be providing an update today, and most of that update centers around our PK through 12 supportive and alternative education plan. So this is something that was first created back in 2014. And each year, in order to align with state statute, we put a committee together to review and update this plan. So initially what I'm going to do today is go through the plan, just so everybody's aware of what's in it. I am going to go through it rather quickly. And the reason for that is not a lot has changed from the previous several years, and this plan is available to the public, so if people have more questions or want to examine it more closely, they're able to do that and spend as much time on it as they'd like. So I am going to click on the link here and pull up the plan. The plan itself is 14 pages, And as we go through this, I'll just point out the few changes that were made this year, and then I'm also going to open up our program matrix, which lays out all of the plans, services, and supports that we offer to students in need throughout our district. So first off, you'll see our table of contents, which then moves into our introduction. And this was one of the first changes that we made, just updating our population numbers and changing our demographic link in here to make sure that it's up to date. Going on from there is our alternative education philosophy. Now, this isn't something that we updated this year, so this is the same. We did review it, but no changes were made, as well as our goals and program objectives. Those remained in place from at least the previous year. Going into section 4, this is where we see applicable laws and state statutes. So one of the things that we have to do by state statute every single year is make sure that we're identifying how our district is going to identify students who are at risk for not graduating. So the state actually lays out the criteria, the minimum criteria that we have to use in grades 5 through 8 and then 9 through 12. The district can set criteria for lower grades, which we've done by just indicating that we review attendance, behavioral data, and our reading and math data. And that's something that we do through our care teams on a pretty consistent basis. But once you get to the 5th through 8th grade, again, this is the criteria that's established by the state. We can add to this, but we can't remove any of these things. So in order to be identified as at risk, a student needs to meet 2 or more of the following criteria. So the first is be 2 or more years behind their age group in basic skill levels, be identified as a habitual truant, being a teen parent or pregnant, someone who's an adjudicated delinquent, and then the next 3 are for 8th grade pupils. The first one are those who score in each subject area administered in the below basic level on state assessments. The next is failed or state examination or failed to be promoted to the 9th grade. When you look at our criteria for 9th through 12th grade, it's essentially the same. The only addition is that they add in the 1 or more years behind their age group and number of credits attained. Going on from there, state statute also says we have to define how we notify parents anytime a student is identified at risk, so we lay out that process here. And then probably the part we spend the most time on are program services. So here's the link for our program matrix, which I'm going to click on here in a moment. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention that we did make a change in section 7.2. In that section, we identify some of the key documents that we utilize throughout the district that relate to alternative education. So that includes our continuums of support for literacy and mathematics and social emotional learning. But I added in this year our key performance indicators, just because that is so key to everything that we do as a district that I wanted people to be able to quickly and easily access those in this section. And then the final change that we made for this year has to do with our progress monitoring assessments. So these assessments show how we really continue to monitor our students who are identified as at risk. And they break it down by grade level groups. None of these change for our elementary or middle level groups. However, we did add iReady as an assessment that we're going to be using at the high school level going into next year. So those were all the changes that were made. Going on from there, we do have a program evaluation section, and then finally we reference our related policy, which is our alternative education policy at the end of this document. So I'm going to scroll back to the first part of section 7 here, where we have the link to our program matrix. I'm going to click on that. So this is our comprehensive matrix that's really divided into 2 sections. The first section identifies the services, supports, or programs that involve community collaborations or partnerships. So again, I'm not going to go through each of these one by one, but there is quite a list here, and we didn't add or remove any of the community partnerships this year. So all of these are the same as last year. However, where we did make some changes was in the second part of this grid, where we look at the services, supports, and programs that are within our district. So one of the things that we did add this year was the suspension deferral program that Dr. Davis mentioned earlier. That was at Merrill Middle this past year, which will be at Val Phillips next year, and also expanding to North High School. And then we also added in our Whatever is Necessary program, which is, I believe, the last one on this list. And that's just the high school version of our WIT program, Whatever It Takes, for students with exceptional behavioral needs, and that's at our Most Blessed Sacrament site. We did remove one program from the list, and that was our Encompass programs, which were closed going into next year. Otherwise, everything else should be the same on this matrix document. So I do want to take some time to highlight 3 of our more popular alternative education programs in the district. The first one being True Academy. I know we did a workshop on True Academy a little bit earlier this year, but True Academy is a new program this year that really combines what was our Second Chance program and our Crossroads program. So the program is really designed to support students who have some of our most challenging behavioral needs and social emotional learning needs. So there are really 2 pathways to enter True Academy. So the first pathway would be for students who are receiving special education services and have behaviors that have led to them being placed in some of the more restrictive settings in our school and have still struggled to be successful in those settings. So teams can make a referral to True Academy and enter if placed there by their IEP team. And then the other pathway to True Academy is through our pre-expulsion process. So if a student has significant behavior that leads to pre-expulsion, through that process we can place them in the program. And really, the way we design the program is to address the lagging skills that students have that lead to them ending up in the program in the first place. So really, we put a lot of emphasis on mental health and therapeutic support, which is why we have a full-time counselor there now. We have a half-time social worker. We have Rawhide that provides clinical therapy on site for students in need. So really want to wrap services around those students in need there. We also work closely with social workers for students that have them at the county level, come in on a regular basis and work with our staff to meet student needs. So in terms of our staff at the program, in addition to the social worker and counselor, we have Mrs. Fisher, who's our program coordinator. We have a full-time English teacher and a full-time math teacher on staff, as well as 2 special education teachers. And we also have a paraprofessional on staff as well, which isn't on this list here, but we don't want to forget that individual. The way True Academy is structured is we have 2 sessions. One is in the morning, one is in the afternoon, each for about 3 hours. And then we have a maximum capacity of 15 students in each section. So we're able to keep the sections relatively small. Low student-to-teacher ratios allow us to really put a lot of focus on relationship building with our students in the program. So in terms of our demographic data for this year, throughout the year we've had 38 students served at True Academy. Out of those 38, 20 of those students had an IEP in place or had special education needs, and then 18 of those students did not have special education needs. And then when broken down by race or ethnicity, 15 of our students identified as Black or African American, 11 identified as white, 11 identified as 2 or more races, and then 1 student identified as American Indian or Alaska Native. In terms of our outcome data from this year, 18 students have successfully completed the program, and when broken down even more, 4 students successfully transitioned back to their home school at the end of the first semester or leading into second semester. Then we have 12 students who are currently preparing to transition back to either the home school or another alternative education program for next year, which is really exciting. And then we had 2 students successfully complete graduation requirements, and we'll be finishing up at the end of the school year. 6 students were exited from the program. 3 of those exited because they transferred to another school district. We had 1 student who dropped out of the program, and then we had 1 student removed due to truancy, they just stopped showing up, and then we had another that was removed due to behavior. And then going into next year, we currently have 14 students who are slated to return to the program. Excuse me. So this slide just looks at expulsion trends. So one of the things that you'll notice is we have 2 years that are highlighted there. Those were the years that were impacted by COVID. So a large portion of each of those years we were in a virtual learning setting. So it's important not to put a whole lot of stock into the data from those 2 years, but just looking at other years, you know, it's kind of scattered all over the place. We are on track to have more pre-expulsions this year than we did last year, but the number of expulsions, actual expulsions that we have, are on track to be less than half of what we had last year. So in terms of a 2-year subset of data, that looks promising. But again, we'll continue to track this over time just to see if we notice any other trends that come up. And then Mrs. Fisher is going to talk a little bit more about some of the great things at True Academy.
Yeah, so this year, we've actually been operating with some substitutes. We didn't have a counselor for the majority of the year, or a math teacher, or a paraprofessional. So we've been lower staff, but luckily have had substitutes in the building. We have already hired a math teacher and a counselor for next school year, so that is super exciting. And so we're going to onboard them for next year. We are about to start our end of the year transition meetings with homeschool staff and students that have successfully completed the program, and within that will include admin from the homeschool. If they're transitioning to an alt-ed program, coordinators or staff from there, parents, the student, and either myself or another staff member from the program who has really truly worked with the student to advocate for them and empower them to advocate for themselves of what they need to be successful going back. Because those restorative meetings are really the most beneficial. So these end of the year meetings will really be part of our true test here. We will review the first year of the program and make adjustments. We are in our first year. We've learned a lot. We've grown. We're going to get more staff. We're going to get some veteran staff from Oshkosh School District already, so that'll be huge for us. We already have partnerships with Rawhide and the food pantry, and then we are establishing new partnerships with a Chick-fil-A leadership program, Home Base, which they help with home life, safety plans, care packages, food, any health stuff. They work with kids directly. It doesn't have to be with the family. It can be just with the kids. So that's a new program that I just learned about that we're going to start that partnership for next year, as well as other volunteer opportunities. And then this is some of our pictures. So the 2 in the middle is our old Second Chance mural, and the kids that graduated got to put their handprint on and sign. So those are our 2 graduates from this year that have already graduated. They were previously Second Chance kids, so we let them pick kind of where they wanted their hand, and they chose that wall. And then the kids have designed this new mural, which is the tree. And when they do get their picture at the end, the staff stands by the ladder and they're on the swing. So it's their little concept that we've all come together and created. And so the backs of these students are pictures of kids that are transitioning on. And so if they graduate, they get their handprint. If they are transitioning, they're going to put their thumbprint as they are leaving their mark on our building and going on to their next building. So it's just been a cool program, and it's fun to see. The only struggle we're seeing is some kids are like, can I stay here? Because we have such a good family aspect there, and so it's been great.
That's wonderful.
So the next program we're going to be highlighting is our Riverside program. So Riverside is a partnership that we have with Fox Valley Technical College, and that's been in place since 2010. And really the basis of the Riverside program is that We use GED curriculum and the GED test to measure competency in the areas of English, mathematics, science, and social studies. So along with that, there's a really strong emphasis on career exploration and employability skills. So they do a lot of really neat activities to really focus in on those areas. The program itself is designed for students who are at least 16 and a half years or older and who are also credit deficient. So it's just an alternative pathway for students who really don't seem to fit well in a traditional school setting. So one of the really cool things about the Riverside program and the partnership with Fox Valley Technical College is the students who are present at Riverside have the opportunity to take classes, college level classes at Fox Valley Technical College, which many of them take advantage of doing. So they're actually able to get ahead of the game, which is a huge benefit for them. One of the other benefits is even though students are completing the program in an alternative pathway using the GED test, students still get an OASD diploma from either Oshkosh North or Oshkosh West, whichever is their home school. So currently we have 4 sections of Riverside in place. Each section can take up to 14 students at a time. And even with that, we still have a waiting list each and every year throughout the year. So it is a really popular program that a lot of students really are eager to participate in. In addition to that, we have individual and group counseling that are a part of Riverside, which have really become an important part over the past few years. In terms of our demographic data at Riverside, we've had 86 students participate in the program so far this year. 36 of those were juniors and 50 were seniors. In terms of special education status, 9 students were identified as special education students or students who had a 504 plan, and then 77 students who participated did not have special education services in place. In terms of race or ethnicity, 59 students identified as white, 1 student identified as Asian, 9 students identified as Hispanic, 11 students identified as Black or African American, and then 6 students identified as 2 or more races. And then in terms of our outcome data for this year, 43 students are completing the program and will meet graduation requirements, which is really exciting. And then 30% of those students are planning on continuing on to post-secondary education. We did have 9 students who exited the program this year. 5 of those students were removed due to attendance. We do have a very strict attendance policy at Riverside, which most students are able to manage, but there are some each year who aren't able to meet that requirement. We had 1 student who was removed due to lack of progress. 1 student transferred to another district. 1 student decided to enter the workforce full-time, and 1 student voluntarily returned to their home school. And then we did include some additional Riverside data here. I'm just going to click on quickly. And this just breaks it down. A lot of times we get questions from both North and West staff about their numbers over the years. So this just looks at a breakdown of both schools in terms of how many students from North have been served versus West, and then graduates. And really what you're going to see is the numbers are pretty close, fairly comparable to one another across the years. We have had a few more West students who have special education needs participating in the program, but overall we have had a few more North students who have participated overall and have graduated from the Riverside program. And then Mrs. Leader is going to tell us a little bit more about Riverside, some of the great things, and then looking ahead.
Thank you. So looking ahead, we do have this wonderful partnership with Fox Valley Tech, and very fortunate to have that. Right now we have 47 students on our waiting list, which is about normal for us at this time of the year. We do have 29 juniors returning. So when you look at our data, you will see that not every student graduates, and that's again because Mr. Kamer says we have 16 and a half age students coming to us. So therefore, that's not possible for them to graduate, obviously, at that time. We are looking at improving our transition readiness with literacy testing, so working with the district on using tape testing and the iReady next year to make sure when the students come to us, they are prepared at the appropriate literacy level. We're also going to continue our partnerships with area businesses. We have many, including the food pantry. We have a very strong AODA education program and bringing a lot of speakers and help students in regards to that topic. We also have a very strong a community engagement program, bringing a lot of speakers to meet with our students and do mentoring on the side as well too. We participate in additional community service projects with many organizations. You'll see later pictures with NAMI, with Christine Ann Center, a variety across the community. This year, Fox Valley Tech expanded their Riverside campus to bring down other programs, which is awesome for our students. So therefore, there's more science, chemistry type programs now on the Riverside campus. Surgery Tech is one, for example. This really removes barriers for a lot of Oshkosh students because transportation to the Appleton campus is always very difficult, especially with changes in bus lines. So therefore, this now gives them more access to programs. And as Mr. Kramer said, we do have about 30% of our students after graduating continue on at Fox Valley Tech or another college. So that's a very high number. We're very proud of that. Looking at expanding opportunities with the college as far as post-secondary options, and then we do partner with the chamber and do career conversations every year and work with area businesses that way too. I'm hoping to see all of you on May 18th at graduation, which is at 10 o'clock at Fox Valley Tech. Here you see a picture of our students. We do take field trips to area businesses as well as this one happens to be to the Appleton campus and looking at the public safety building there, and so students that are exploring careers. They do allow us to do a lot of hands-on opportunities there, which we are very fortunate to have that. And secondly, here you see we are making wreaths and for the community, and we did projects also for the senior center. We made candles at Christmas time and gave them to area citizens as well as to NAMI.
All right, the last program we're going to briefly highlight is our New Start program, and Ms. Sean Holm, our New Start coordinator, was unable to be here tonight, so I'm going to take care of this part of the presentation for her. But our New Start program is what's called a GED Option 2 program. So it's similar in some ways to Riverside. Some of the big differences is it's right on our campuses. So we have one section at North High School and one section at West High School. It does also use the GED test for measures of competency in the areas of English, math, science, and social studies. However, it doesn't have a curriculum option like Riverside does. So it's a little bit more limited in that way. In terms of the target population for New Start, students have to be at least 17 years old and they have to be a senior. And that's based on the cohort that they entered 9th grade with. And then students also have to be at least 3 credits credit deficient upon entering their senior year. So these are requirements that are really laid out by the state. So there's no way that we can deviate from those. The state pretty much tells us what we have to do in order for students to enter a GED 2 program. It's also worth mentioning students have to be reading at a 9th grade equivalency. And the reason for that is that's the minimum reading level that they estimate students need in order to successfully take the GED test. In addition to that, students who enter New Start have to work at least 10 hours per week. They could volunteer as well. And they have to meet all other graduation requirements. So each of our sections, the section at North and West, is capable of holding up to 15 students at a time. In terms of our demographic data, we only had 18 students participate in New Start this year, which is the lowest number we've had in quite some time. And I don't know what accounts for that. It could be that we added another section to Riverside coming out of the pandemic. But we're going to continue to take a look at that number just to see what our trends are long term, if this was just a one-year anomaly or if this is something that's going to continue on. But in terms of those 18 students, 2 are students who had special education services and 16 were students who were not in special education. In terms of race and ethnicity, 13 students identified as white, 2 identified as Asian, 2 identified as Hispanic, and 1 identified as Black or African American. In terms of our outcome data, 13 students successfully completed the program and will be graduating with either an Oshkosh North or Oshkosh West diploma. 3 of those 13 scored at a college-ready level or above on their GED test, which is impressive. We do have 1 student who is finishing up and will be completed by the end of the year, so that'll bring our total to 14. And then we had 4 students who exited the program this year. 2 were removed due to a lack of progress. 1 student moved to another school district, and then finally 1 was removed due to behavior. In terms of looking ahead, one of the conversations we did have this year at our alt-ed meeting was whether or not we should keep New Start at 2 sections or if we should reduce it to 1. And as a team, we decided to keep it at 2 for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is that prior to a few years ago, we only had 1 section of New Start, and it was located at North High School. And that really was a barrier for some of our students at West High who wanted to access the program, but really didn't feel comfortable going to a different high school to access it. So when we expanded to West High School, we did see an increase in participation of West students, and we don't want to remove that opportunity from them. So we wanted to keep the 2 sections for at least 1 more year, and like I said, continue to monitor participation and then adjust accordingly. The good news is we already have 18 students who are being considered for New Start going into next year. So that's a pretty decent number to start the year. We always gain as the year goes along. One of the big changes that we saw coming out of COVID is that the state changed the requirement. It used to be that students could only take their last GED test a minimum or a maximum of 3 weeks before their class graduates. So even if a student met requirements in October, we'd have to hold on to them until 3 weeks to go in the school year in order for them to complete before we could release them. So coming out of COVID, DPI changed that, so now as soon as a student meets eligibility requirements, we can kind of set them free, which is nice, but our population tends to decrease as the year goes on. So with our program coordinator, as the year moves along, we've been able to utilize her in other areas, including helping out at True Academy and managing some of our students who are receiving homebound instruction. So that's been a nice benefit of this change at the state level. And then we're also taking a look at our entry process just to make sure that we're getting candidates who meet all the requirements and really have a realistic shot of completing the program. Because students are entering during their senior year, there's a limited window of time with which they have to complete New Start. So if a student is completely starting from scratch, a lot of times it's nearly impossible for them to finish within that timeline. So really what we want to do is make sure that students who are coming in really have the skills that they need to enter the program, and if they don't, we want to start long in advance to try to get those skills up to a level where they could successfully participate, if that makes sense. And then we also want to make sure that we're using other diagnostic tests to really measure and analyze and make sure that we're able to meet all of the needs that they have. So when we talk about 9th grade reading level, we never want to base eligibility and a student's ability to participate in a program on 1 test score. So sometimes if a student is near that 9th grade reading level, we'll do additional tests and look at other data to see if they really are a good candidate for the program. So that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Dr. Herzog? Thank you. Would your recommendation be to add an additional section at Riverside?
Well, so we did add a 4th section, was that 2 years ago? And of course it filled up right away. So the program is utilizing it, as you can see from the wait list, that we continue to have a pretty strong interest in the program. At this point, I honestly don't know if adding another section is something that we would want to consider. That'd be a conversation we'd have to have with Fox Valley Tech to see if they have the capacity, not only from a staffing standpoint, but from a space standpoint, because the rooms that we use right now are used both in the morning and the afternoon with our 4 sections. So, did you have anything you wanted to add on that, Lisa?
Well, I know that when this has come up in previous years with previous boards, usually there've been questions about a waiting list. Should we have a waiting list? And I don't know if that's rhetorical or not, but it's a question that is put out there. On the other hand, with 40-some students spread over 2 high schools, another question that often comes up is, should there be a concomitant reduction in staff at the high schools, north and west, if we're sending these kids to these alternative programs? I don't have an answer for that. That may be rhetorical also, but it's a question that comes up. 47 may not be enough to reduce a section, but we're spreading, we only have so many dollars, and we have lots of needs in the district, so I'm just
One
throwing
thing to
those
consider as well, there
things
are
out there.
some of the students who are on the waiting list are on there because either they haven't shown that they can attend school consistently, and Riverside, like I said, has a very strict attendance
Oh, yeah.
policy. So a lot of times, those students on the waiting list, we have a contract with them to make sure that they're demonstrating they can attend school on a regular basis before we make the transition. Other students may not be at a high enough reading level,
Okay.
so we don't have as stringent of a reading criteria as we do for a New Start, but we do want students reading at least a 5th grade level. So what we do is what's called a TABE test done through Fox Valley Tech that gives us an idea of where their reading level is. For some of our students, they're below what we would consider a minimum level for access to the program. So what we want to start doing more of is instead of just telling those students, no, you can't enter the program, getting them the support that they need to build those skills up to get to a point where they can enter the program, and then once they're there, be more successful within the program.
This is a program that is near and dear to my heart, having worked with Mrs. Leader at the old East High School. And I learned a lot from that experience, and one of the things I learned is that not everybody is likely to be successful in one of the 2 large comprehensive high schools, and that's not a knock on those schools by any means. But we have a means of individualizing learning for students to be successful so that they can either graduate or get a GED, and I think that's wonderful because these students may not have that. And if they don't have a GED or a diploma, then their options are limited beyond high school when we talk about being college, career, and community ready. So I really see the value in these programs, and I have several favorite things that happen in the school year, and one of them is the Project Search graduation, and another one is the Riverside graduation. Those are very special and very, very emotional in different ways than what you see in the comprehensive high schools, and I love those too. Thank you.
So, I think it was a year ago, we did some similar presentation at the Education Committee. And I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but looking at this is the number of students that we're able to help that maybe would have fallen through the cracks. You know, and the success rate is pretty high from that. And so from that standpoint, I agree with Dr. Herzog. I was going to say it, college, career, and community ready, but you beat me to it. But that's the point, right?
You can take that. You can take credit for that.
And there's
Don't own
multiple
it.
ways to get to where we want to be, and it makes me feel good. On another note, I went out and saw True Academy back in March, and Andrea Fisher is incredibly impressive with how she runs True Academy, and I just wanted to give you a shout out because it's I've said it to you, but just so everybody hears it, it's obvious how much you care, and that's such a important place to be, that you want people that really care as much as you do. So
Thank you.
you deserve all the credit for that. So
Thank you.
Yeah, both of these ladies really make the programs what they are. Their dedication and the relationships with kids and staff, it's just outstanding.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. It was an eye-opening and wonderful presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And all you do for the kids. And our next workshop is Northside Elementary School boundaries.
everybody. We are here to talk about the new Northside Elementary School boundaries. There are 4 of us who are presenting today, obviously myself, Dave Gunlock, but we also have Drew's here as well from representing Business Services, and Bridget Dooley from Martinson and Isley, who does all the magical GIS work, and you'll see some of that coming up here shortly. And then John Campbell, who represents Traffic Analysis and Design Incorporated, who really brings some interesting perspectives for the first time, at least in the history that I recall here in Oshkosh, as we're going through the boundary redesigns. Our boundary redesign process is not new. We've done it before. In 2013, we had to adjust boundaries when we built the new Oak Lawn school. However, we had Martinson and Isley, and that was it. We didn't have the benefit of what John brought to the table. Fortunately, it was just making it a little bit bigger, so it wasn't very controversial. We went through a few iterations and approved the boundaries, and they've been used ever since. The other time we did a boundary adjustment was on the 500 block of Ohio Street. We made a couple of minor adjustments there because we couldn't figure out why the boundaries were going through people's yards. And then we realized they were drawn on based on the bed of an old railroad track that was no longer there. So we made that adjustment and cleaned that up as well. So we have a project, and we'll show you the maps in just a second, but it's important to understand that this is a direct result of us consolidating schools. Our current portfolio of schools is 13 elementary schools, 5 middle, 2 high, and a wide variety of multiple 4K sites. As you know, for a district of 10,000 students, that's too many buildings, but we're down to about 9,000 students and ticking a little bit lower, so the consolidation makes a great deal of sense. For those who are observing, I know the board knows this very well, but currently we have 5 schools on 3 sites. We're in the middle of phase 1. You heard a great report from Jim Fox and Nate Considine from Bray and Drew as well about what we're working on here in terms of the facilities. And we're obviously going to be opening up Bell Phillips here shortly in the fall of 2023. It'll be awesome to actually have pictures of the real building and not artist renderings going forward. We're then going to be transferring all the Webster Elementary students into Merrill Elementary. The new elementary school, Menominee Elementary, will be opening fall 2024, and then we will basically be down to 2 schools on 2 sites. Phase 2 involves something very similar with South Park. It will allow us to have a little bit greater capacity and move the students from the Tippler attendance area into South Park, maybe into Traeger a little bit. That's a project for a different day. We'll be remodeling a variety of elementary schools, making them very similar to what Menominee Elementary is going to be in terms of capacity. We repurposed Tippler Middle School and the Shapiro STEM Academy into a 4K center, and then we would be closing Roosevelt Elementary School. Shapiro STEM Academy would no longer exist in its current form, and Tippler Middle School would obviously be repurposed, so that was phase 2. Phase 3 is looking like a replacement of Oshkosh West High, and phase 4 could be a renovation or replacement of North High. So right now, if you look at this, post phase 1, when we are done with phase 1 in fall of 24, we'll have 11 elementary schools, 4 middle, 2 high, multiple 4K sites. But when we get past phase 2, we'll be down to 1 4K center, 9 elementary, 3 middle, and 2 high schools. And that should be the cruising altitude for the Oshkosh Area School District for the foreseeable future. There were some assumptions and challenges we had to go through. First off, our enrollment has declined approximately 750 students with a projected drop of 1% to 2% per year. For those people who may be watching, that is not an Oshkosh-only thing. That is a Wisconsin thing in a big way. Most districts, I think over 60%, it was recently announced in Wisconsin, are declining enrollment. They have similar numbers to ours, so this just happens to be where the demographics are at the moment. We had a choice. We could wait a full year before redoing these boundaries, or we could get moving on it now. In looking at the data, we realized it was probably wise to proceed now, because as you're going to find, we don't have a ton of options. We're relatively full, which is how it was designed, on the north side in terms of elementary schools. We also thought, rather than try and guess at 24-25 data, we wanted to grab the 23-24 data that we're pretty confident is really solid numbers. Okay, so that's what we wanted to use. So we gave everybody the numbers from the 23-24 enrollment. And right now, our 23-24 enrollment is 1,640 students on the north side of town. The capacity of those buildings is 1,800. That means we're at 91.1% capacity. Those of you who've heard me present in the past, normally I say anywhere between 85 and 90, you're pretty full. And people sometimes look at that and go, well, wait a minute, we have 160 seats there. Why is that full? It's full because parents don't have children in the right grade at the right time according to our direction. So kids come and go, and that's the way it's been forever, and you have to have some capacity to handle the students who come and go in your school system. The thing I'm really excited about is when we used to draw boundaries in the past, and Bridget can talk a little bit about how they've done that, we didn't always have all the data at our disposal as far as children walking to school. Well, now we've been able to bring in Taddy, and I will turn it over to John, who can explain a little bit about what they bring to the table in terms of procedure.
Hey, thanks, David. My name's John Campbell. I'm the Director of Traffic Safety at Taddy. Taddy is a traffic engineering firm, and we do work throughout the Midwest. And what we've been doing is going to school districts throughout the state and helping them make informed decisions about where to bus children to school and where to be able to safely walk to school. Historically, as David mentioned, some of these decisions have been made subjectively. They often fell on county sheriffs to identify areas to bus. As you can imagine, county sheriffs have a lot of responsibilities and have kind of been transitioning more to a review role for the development of these walking borders. So that's where my company got involved, and my safety team did a research of best practices throughout the country and developed a scoring criteria. We know students are exposed to risk walking along roadways to school. That risk changes based on the number of vehicles on the road, the speed they're going. Do they have a sidewalk to walk on? How far is the sidewalk from the road? We also know they're exposed to risk crossing roadways. Are there any safety features to help them cross the road? Pedestrian countdown timers, high visibility crosswalks, or crossing guards. So what we're able to do is inventory the data throughout the Oshkosh School District and put that together to make some very informed decisions about where it would be too hazardous to expect students to walk from. And it ultimately leads to data-driven solutions, and is a very crucial part in this process of defining borders. One thing I also wanted to mention is we know students, different age levels, have different cognitive abilities. We don't expect an elementary school student to be able to cross the same type of roadway that a high school student could. So that's something we take into consideration when we analyze the data.
And it should be pointed out that we started looking, and really Drew is probably the one who brought all this to the table, which is great, but we started looking at that after we closed Smith. I should have had that in there as a boundary redraw, but that was frankly a very simple one. We were able to merge Smith and Jefferson into one boundary. That boundary was about the size of a normal elementary school boundary that normally would exist. However, there were people who were like, hey, I have to walk much farther now, and my child is 6 years old. What do we do about that? So I think that was part of the reason too, is realizing we're talking about elementary age students here, so let's do double diligence here and finding out exactly what type of data we have as far as designing boundaries. So that was Taddy's involvement, and they gave us some really good information, and then we passed that off to the people that do the real hard work, and that's Bridget in terms of designing the actual boundaries.
As David said, I'm Bridget Dooley. I'm the GIS technician at Martinson and Isley. And we've worked with the school district over the last 10 or so years. And when David called to participate in this project, we're more than excited to do that. What we do is we get the location of the students' data and geocode it, placing it on the maps, and as you can see, all the little colorful dots are the schools that those children attend at this time. Then, once we get those plotted onto the map, we were able to then take the TADI information and lay that in there, which are the dashed lines. And then you're able to take and make polygons. And as you create the polygons, you're able to, with this GIS program, find out how many dots are in that boundary area. And as I worked on these scenarios, I felt the two scenarios that we came up with seemed to be the best for the school district to work with and go down the line as to what other situations may come in to play, being busing or walking. But that will put that down the road, and with the safe crossing, hopefully we can accommodate everyone.
So having gone through several of these in the past, I was actually pretty shocked, excited that once we laid down the TADI designed zones, and the zones were a score of 100 or less, I believe. You'll see that as the dotted lines. If you look at the map right now, the different dotted lines are zones around those schools that have a score of 100 or less. And as you'll see, the boundaries, the polygons that were drawn, are pretty good with those. Obviously, there's some spots that get around it, such as down here in the southwest corner. There is really no way to get a safe walking route from those spaces without adding in some suggested changes to crossing guards, crosswalks, etc. So that's good to see and be able to look at that. What you can also see is by looking at the color distribution of the dots, you can see our existing attendance areas. If you really take a look, you can kind of see that all the teal colored dots are Merrill. All the purple colored dots are E-Cook. Now you may see there's some other colored dots inside of the E-Cook area. That's because that they're actually, they're attending a different school. So the green dot here is actually attending Webster Elementary, but they live in the E-Cook attendance area. Those are the things that we always do through the out of attendance process. That's the other good news, is I don't see a smattering of colored dots all over the place, which means we shouldn't have to deal with too many grandfathering issues. We can still, if somebody really wants to be grandfathered in for out of attendance, we are recommending that we still do that, because we have the ability to do that here. This is scenario 4A. What you'll notice, and I've been bouncing between scenario 4A and 5 all the time, and what, if I were to, and Bridget, I'm going to ask you to correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me like the difference is 4A, the one we are recommending, is a little bit of a cleaner boundary. What 5 does is it kind of has a whole bunch of angles up here where these three schools meet, and it sweeps down a little bit more, basically takes Reed's attendance area, the red, a little bit farther south.
Yeah.
Is that about, yeah, okay. So let's take a look. We'll go ahead and show you what 5 looks like here. We'll open that up.
How much of a change is there in student numbers between?
Oh, wait till you see that. Hardly any.
Really?
Well, because remember, we're 91.1% full, so you don't have a lot of wiggle room to play around. And also remember, as much as that gives me a little bit of a twitch, being 91.1% full, also remember we are projected to drop about 1% or 2% over the next 5 years, and our data is bearing that out. We are down at the elementary level a little over 70 students between right now and when next year hits. And we also have one more year to go before these boundaries will actually be necessary. That's another real important point. These boundaries will be enacted for the 24-25 school year. Correct. I say that very slow because I want to screw that up. But if you look up here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. What you'll notice between the other boundary is that, see how the green jags up here, kind of goes back and forth and back and forth? What that does is that grabs up into the Merrill area a little bit more, and you can also see that Reed swings down here and comes way down where the Reed boundary was over here before in scenario 4A. So what it does is it creates boundaries that have a lot of angles to them, and we felt that those were not as good, nor did they make as much sense to people. You know, people tend to make sense if you can keep the polygons as regular as possible. It seems to make sense to people's boundaries. So that is why the recommendation we made was for 4A, which you can see here. There's not a lot of angles bouncing around in the interface between the different elementary schools. And we thought that was going to be a little bit easier, but it's also probably going to be easier for us to design crossing walk changes, et cetera, as we work with the city on some of those things. So any questions on the two different boundaries? And we can always come back to this. So here's scenario 4A, and as you can see there, there's the capacity of the schools, scenario 4A's numbers, the available seats totaling 160, and the percent capacity they're sitting at. I'll show you 5, and then I'll show you them together. So this gives you the full look, and this gets, Christopher, in answer to your question, you can see there's very little change between the two boundaries. We just feel 4A is cleaner. And if you look at the big change is eCook has 4 less seats in 4A. Oaklawn's identical in 4A. Reed Elementary adds 3 seats and Menominee adds 1 seat in 4A. So,
And really, that's all within such thin margins that it could shift.
Absolutely.
Any which way, what they say is within the margins.
Oh, it's definitely within the margins and it will shift. Yeah, but it seems very clean the way it's been laid out, and I am very happy. I have to tell you, 2 to 3 years ago, I was a little nervous whether we'd be able to fit. And the numbers in the studies all came out exactly like they were predicted to come out, and it fits. So that's the good news. Here are some recommendations, or there's going to be some recommendations that they make to help with the boundaries, no matter which one the board eventually selects.
I won't get into a lot of detail here, but this is part of the process. We'll work with the school district to communicate to the city where it'd be important to have crossing guards or different other engineering improvements that could be made to help with the safe routes to school. Here's a list of potential new crossing guard locations. We identified 6 spots throughout the district. And on the next slide, there's a few other potential improvements, just adding some high visibility crosswalks. With the addition of some crossing guards and the reconfiguration of schools, there are some opportunities to potentially remove crossing guards because they're just no longer needed.
Musical chairs. So transportation. This is really kind of evolving here as we really look at what Teddy has done in creating walking point zones. That's completely different to how we currently manage and do transportation and busing at every level that we actually currently have students at. So we've got a solution right now. This is going to be an ever-evolving solution as we continue working with Taddy and have some more conversations with facilities and finance and the board on where we want to go within the walking zone safety. Right now, that's a break from what we've done. So that's going to potentially change how we do transportation in the future. What we can do and what we're looking at for this year with the Webster kids that have to get to Merrill Middle School for next school year is we're going to have a shuttle bus that picks up across the street from the current Webster, so by Hazel and Seward Trail. We'll have a pickup location there for parents that would like to have their student transported from that spot, and then we'll transport them into Merrill Middle School and get dropped off, and then same thing at the end of the day.
So our recommendations would be for approval of scenario 4A. We feel that's a much cleaner, more logical boundary. And continued monitoring of enrollment, and then take another peek at this in January 2024. That would be internally done just to confirm we're still on track and everything's looking good, because a year from now can make a difference. But we're confident that if we establish the boundaries here at the end of the school year, that those should be viable for the opening of Menominee Elementary in the 24-25 school year. And with that, we would open it up for any questions.
I'll start. I think one of the things I've heard the most about the school referendum and you know, the updates and the new schools is the loss of the community schools and the ability for kids to walk. I think seeing that we have some proactiveness and proposals in place to help with that, I think that's an important message to tell our story, as we say, or, you know, to make sure that we are thinking about those kids that are maybe a little further away from school, and make sure that we're taking care of them. I think you'd mentioned the declining enrollment. We talk about it quite a bit. I get people still coming up to me when we talk about, you know, the schools, they're struggling. Why are the kids leaving? And it's simply we have less coming in kindergarten than we do going out as seniors.
Correct.
And that is a statewide issue. That is not, sure, are there kids leaving and open enrolling? Absolutely, but not at the numbers that we're talking. So that's an important story as well. You had mentioned we're still scheduled to go down for the next 5 years.
That's our projection.
At some point, the projection does level out, and then we start to go back up again. So that's the 5 to plus year range. Is that?
Well, I'm not sure. We're not sure exactly when that would happen. I mean, we hope after 5 years things will level out.
Yeah.
You know, but we really can't.
I mean, because uncannily, we've been right at that survey or that report that UW-Madison put together, and that's like we're getting near the bottom of that soon, and then we'll see.
Well, and Bray Architects use that data to help us generate through the work of the Facility Advisory Committee 1. That was a big part of that, and deciding, okay, how do you reconfigure the portfolio of schools in the Oshkosh Area School District to match the population that's going to be there. I think all of us at the time, I mean, I was doing the numbers at the time, and the numbers were higher, but they were projected to come down, and they did indeed come down. So,
do you think there's any thought, when new schools are built, do those schools see an influx of people moving to that area to take advantage of a new school? Yes. Like, are we, so we're expecting that that's going to happen, which could eventually lead to, as you said, keeping track of this enrollment, but that could lead to potential changes down the road if things shift.
If we are projected to decline 1 to 2%, and we build new schools, and it happens like the last time we built a new school with Oak Lawn, that 1 to 2% drop might not just happen. Mm-hmm. Now, do I think it will actually turn the other way? I can't say. Mm-hmm. We have contingency plans for that to make sure that if all of a sudden we, you know, have a tremendous boom of people moving into Oshkosh, there are contingency plans for that as well.
Good.
We saw the change you're talking about when Oak Lawn was built.
Yeah.
There was some vacant land in that Fair Acres, I think they call it Fair Acres Plaza up there in Murdoch, with those apartments that went in, and then there were subdivisions that were built north on Jackson Street. Carl Traeger filled in tremendously compared to what that looked like from an aerial view before that was built, and then all these houses were built there. So yes, when they build it, they will come. And Nina High School is experiencing the same thing with people building out there by that new high school.
I'm excited to see that because so much of the west side gets the development and the expanse, and obviously there's more space out there. You can't go into the lake, but you know, there's. I'm excited to see if we do get growth going into that part of the city, because that would be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I mean, ever since I got on the board, I dislike declining enrollment, and I hope that these investments that we're making, you know, in and for our community, result in us having an increased enrollment. I think that you know, we'll see. Past history, though, indicates that new schools, new facilities lead towards good things. You know, and if we hit on facilities, we hit on academic programming, and all that stuff gets going in the right direction, I think we're going to see some surprises, some good surprises So I'm hopeful for that. I mean, because our funding, some of that criteria depends upon that. You know, either you're a growing district or you're a declining district. You know, and I certainly want to see us become a growing district, and I think that we're doing some things that over time, you know, will make that happen. So those are my comments.
Dr. Herzog?
Thank you. I've seen a lot of boundary line plans and revisions over my years affiliated with the district, and I have to say I think this is the best one I've seen with the work that Bridget and John have put into this. It's very comprehensive. You've looked at lots of things and lots of variables, and I appreciate all the work that you put into this, and I will support 4A.
I just have a comment or question maybe. In looking at this phase 2 of the whole story, what or who will be determining whether, like for number 1 here, it talks about replacement or remodel of South Park Middle School, yet in the previous presentation, I believe it was 3B, they were talking about summer projects happening. So is that something that the board will determine what happens with South Park, whether it's a replacement or a remodel?
Definitely, because anything you do that's going to be that large of a scale is going to require a referendum, so the board's going to have to approve all the steps leading up to that, because you're going to also have to approve the referendum, and then the community is going to have to approve the funding to make it happen.
Well, and I just ask and maybe have a little concern of, you know, we're looking at putting projects into South Park as the previous 3B had stated, you know, and I believe it was a library chiller. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I can imagine replacing that at a building as large as South Park can't be fairly cheap. So I guess I'm just, you know, we're looking at doing these projects there, but then coming back and going, well, the building could be replaced.
Yeah, so the balance of that, and that's beyond the boundaries, but to the point of the referendum, potential referendum projects, the balance of that is that we know that building needs to be serviceable up into, you know, its earliest replacement, which would be 2027, 2028.
Sure. Sorry if that was off.
No, that's right. So, but it's an important, it's a good observation. So we need to be able to bridge that gap, and we're very conscientious of the amount of money that we would put into buildings that we may be replacing. But we do need to make sure that they stay functional, because there's also the chance that the community doesn't support the referendum to where all of a sudden, you know, we need to make sure that, you know, that building stays serviceable.
Sure.
So.
Thank you very much. Wonderful presentation. Appreciate it.
Great job.
Okay, our next item is the consent resolution agenda, and be reminded that we have pulled 1C and 6. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item as discussed at a previous meeting. These will be acted on with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled to the consent agenda and voted on separately, as we did.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Carnes.
Aye.
Solagi. Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you.
I don't think I voted.
Oh, I am so sorry. Herzog. I looked right over your name.
That's okay. That's okay. I was paying attention. I thought that was a test you were giving me.
No. Herzog. So,
Aye. Yes, aye. Thank you.
there you go. Resolution carries.
Okay, our first individually considered resolution is 1C, and that is personnel administrative appointment, Assistant Superintendent of Operations.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll?
Oh, we get to discuss
discussion.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I had asked that this be pulled because I wanted to share some thoughts. A couple of us, namely Kelly and I, were out on the campaign trail from January through April or into April, and I'm sure she, as I, had a lot of thoughts shared with me. And we in my case, there were people who were aware of the fact that we were adding positions to central office, and that's usually a topic that generates discussion. And I was also hearing from people they wanted to hear or see greater accountability for the district test scores, especially in the area of reading and math, and then the DPI overall score. I also heard from people who wanted to make sure that we addressed closing achievement gaps for students with special needs, those on free and reduced lunch, and students of color. And I heard from people who wanted to know what's the return on investment of these new positions, which I think those are all legitimate questions. Personally, I have great confidence in Dr. Davis and the work the administrative team has done with the key performance indicators, the KPIs, the implementation of a policy which includes specific targets for our reading and literacy scores, and I believe that those will be successful. I've been on the board for several years, and I can't emphasize enough the commitment that I have for increased accountability and achieving the policy results in that policy related to reading and literacy scores and the KPIs. And so my vote on this is going to reflect my commitment to accountability. It's not meant as anything negative about any individual, but I just feel we have to make sure that we're being accountable all through the organization, and so that's how I'm going to be voting tonight.
Good night.
Dr. Davis.
Yeah, so I just want to be able to give context to the to the recommendations. So we ran through a competitive process. So had some high quality candidates. Julie Conrad came out as the number one candidate in both of our rounds through the process for our assistant superintendent operations. And I think again to reemphasize the point and the commitment to our key performance indicators, I think one of the things that this appointment will allow us to do is be able to take the instructional expertise and apply it to the operations side. So when we're looking at things like human resources and financing and budget and forecasting, it really allows us to take an expert from the curriculum and assessment side and the instructional side and be able to apply it over on the operations side. So I'm looking forward to that. To that expertise being there to be able to have a more integrated process as we're moving forward, and really looking forward to just continuing to work with Julie as a main player on our team, and I think a real leader, and certainly when you've been in the system and I'll say this with all affection and love, as long as Julie has been in our system, to be able to command the respect that she has of her peers, and command in a positive way. That she's earned that on the curriculum and instruction side. And again, I think the appointment on the operations side, although may seem a little peculiar given our openings, I think it does. For me, doubles down on our commitment to make sure that we're hitting our literacy policies and that we're getting the most investment, return for our dollar, if you will. In business talk, like I truly believe that Julie will be able to provide that enhancement on our operations side as we move forward. So just a little bit of context as we're
I'll add something. You coming in with a fresh set of eyes in the last couple of years has really, like, this would be a time for fresh eyes if you thought it was the case. And I trust if you went through the rounds that you went through and Julie came out as the head, I trust, as the leader in that race, I trust that, because you would have no reason not to, because this is a chance for you to kind of set the stage for what we look like next. So if that's the way it came out, I trust your guidance and judgment on that. So
thank you.
All good?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the roll, please. Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Herzog?
Present.
Carnes?
Aye.
Resolution carries. Okay. And our next individually considered resolution is number 6, 2-year custodial contract.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Mrs. Wyman, I had asked that this be pulled as well. I don't have any problems with this resolution, but in interest of being open and transparent, I just thought it would be helpful if Mr. Nehans could explain the selection of the bidder whom is being recommended tonight.
Yes, after quite a bit of digging into the different proposals we got, Mr. Fox and I are the most comfortable with the recommendation that we're making tonight with Mid-American being the selection. We realized that they were not the low bid, but of the two column finalists in HES and Mid-American, Mid-American with their more local presence in Wisconsin. They've got 5 or 6 districts in the Milwaukee area coming north to West Bend, and HES has 1 district in Beloit is their only Wisconsin presence. We felt more and more comfortable with Mid-American being the recommendation. They had an outstanding reference from West Bend, and they're based in West Allis, and just seemed like the better fit with more of a Wisconsin presence right now that's more of a known quantity than HES.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Call the roll.
Lyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Are there any future agenda items? Dr. Herzog?
Thank you. I believe we are in year 3, or maybe it's 4 out of 3, in terms of the agreement we had with the city of Oshkosh and the Oshkosh School District and a local business to provide free busing for all of our students. And so I think we need to bring that back and talk about what we're going to do with that in the future.
Yes, we can have that on the agenda. Mark Roloff and I had a meeting last week, so the timing is great. And so we're working through an agreement, so, yeah.
I'd like to.
Yes.
I'm just throwing stuff out there. I saw that, I think Sunday, I had heard that EW Oshkosh had closed their child care center, or is in the process of doing that.
Yes.
Happened to see that actually affects some of our board members, our previous board members, and people who have taken advantage of that, and that is a loss to the community. And I don't know if there's what can be done at this point. I don't know if any talk was ever given to an OASD collaboration with that, or ways to do that, because there's obviously a lacking of childcare, and hearing the stories from people having to wait so long, I struggle to understand how they came to that decision, but I was not involved in that. So I just wonder if there's ways that, we can be a part of that, or could have been a part of that, or things we can learn for the future. Being that especially that was a former school site, so.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what I'm asking for.
Is that an agenda item, or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm just throwing it out there. That was an item that I kind of saw that, and I thought, I don't know if there was ways that we can do anything for that. If we can't, then ignore everything I said.
No, it was good feedback.
So.
Okay. Anything else? All right. We will be adjourning.
Oh, could we do announcements?
Yeah, I have announcements right there. Sorry.
That's all right. It's late.
Getting crazed. Okay, announcements. Any announcements? Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. This board had approved earlier this year the naming of an appropriate facility at South Park Middle School for the former band director Nancy Dollish. That's going to take place tomorrow.
Oh.
They have a band concert, I believe, starts at 7, goes till 8. And so the word I got was that this dedication would take place around 7:30 tomorrow night at South Park. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And then a brief WASB update. I was recently appointed as the liaison from the WASB to the Wisconsin School Music Association Board of Directors. That's a 1-year term. That's a group made up of well over 1,000 music teachers and administrators, so I'll get the chance to represent WASB as well as this board with music and the arts. And last night at the CISA 6 Board of Control, I was selected as the representative from that board to what is known as the School District Boundary Advisory Committee, which is a group that looks at disputes between or among 2 or more school districts and land that they want in their district as compared to another district. And then finally, on a very positive note, there's a WASB Spring Workshop on Governance, which will be held next week, Tuesday, May 16th at CISA 6, and you're still welcome to sign up for that if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? During Teacher Appreciation Week, I think I can speak for all of us in saying thank you to all the teachers, all the staff, every support person in this district that provides education and services for all of our students. Thank you very much.
Well said. Second.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
I'll second.
The board will be moving to executive session. We're considering employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And it's consideration of employment for Assistant Superintendent of Instruction position. Call the roll.
DeWitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned to executive session.
Thank you.
Chris.